Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lighthouse Sessions. Today, I'm excited. I have my new friend, Devin Thorpe, here with me. Devin, welcome to the show. And if you don't mind, just share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me. You're so kind and generous with your invitation. I'm honored to be here. You do such a great job with the show, and I am truly honored. I am Devin Thorpe. I'm the host of my own show, and I've dedicated the last dozen years of my life and career to kind of my second career. This was a very strategic decision I made, nearly 50 years ago, that I would devote the second half of my career to social impact. And I wasn't sure what shape or form that would take, but it's become kind of digital media primarily, right? So I produce a show, I produce a digital newsletter, I've written a number of books. I think we're around 10 now. And so the work I do is all centered around supporting social entrepreneurs, diverse founders, community builders. We're trying to make a better planet using business, entrepreneurship, impact investing. And the most powerful tool in that vein that I have discovered is crowdfunding, because traditional impact investing, and to the extent there is such a thing as traditional impact investing, it's a concept that's only 20, 25 years old. But to the extent there is a tradition, it is something wealthy people do to give back.
Yeah.
And I am convinced that by using crowdfunding, by investing small amounts, like our friend Jay Burble's got a crowdfunding campaign going on right now, and you can invest in his deal and benefit from the profits he generates. At the same time, you're helping him accomplish a very important social mission, helping people who are on the autism spectrum and others sleep better and enjoy life more. So, it's just a spectacular place, this crowdfunding world, for us to do win-win. And, I find that as I do this, and very deliberately, very intentionally, I find myself earning more money than I do in the stock market from my crowdfund investments. And say, well, why would I not do this, right? Do more of it, right? I win, they win, everyone wins. Let's keep doing it. So anyway, I ramble. You ask me a cogent question, and I'll try and make up another answer.
I love it. And by the way, my favorite thing is to ask a visionary entrepreneur what they do and then sit back and watch them, because there's a lot of dots to connect. And I love the fact. So there's a lot I want to cover. Now, I'm going to ask a hard-hitting question first, because I think it'll build on everything. I see a lot of hate in the world for the wealthy people when they do good. And Bill Gates is a classic example. And yes, for the record, I have not yet forgiven him for Windows 95. However, that was not all him. But when I see what the man is doing in the world, and it was fascinating, because I watched a documentary, and he's literally obsessed with diarrhea. Literally everything, he walks around carrying books, and his goal is to end the unnecessary death from waterborne diseases that cause bacteria, that cause diarrhea, that cause death. And it fascinates me how people can find that as villainous, and they want to vilify him. And it's like, but he's trying to save lives.
Yeah.
And I know you've interviewed him, and I've known you wrote about him. So when I saw that you and I were going to talk, I'm like, I got to ask, what is the deal with everybody wanting to hate on Bill Gates? And, I suspect that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is doing way more good in the world than most of us know. I'd love your perspective on, why are we so mean to rich people who do good things?
Yeah, there are a variety of reasons. Some of them I'm very sympathetic to. But yes, having met Bill Gates in person spent time with him a little bit, and I got to tell you, he's the real deal, right? He is, as far as I can tell, and no one's perfect, right? He and Michelle ended a marriage that looked blissful for so long, and it's disappointing, right? There are implications around that I worry about, but the fact is, the work that the foundation is doing is legit. It is real. And, I talked to him primarily about his efforts on polio eradication. And, there are a lot of celebrities in the world who get behind initiatives with social impact. And many of them are not really genuine about it. I know that there's a celebrity that is very well known for her work around a particular cause. And, about the time I had Bill Gates on the show, I invited her to come be on the show. And her team was like, well, that's absurd. She's not going to do that.
Tells you everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. So she lends her name to it. But it's not something she does, right? Bill Gates is the opposite. Like you say, talk about him walking around obsessing about diarrhea. He really is that kind of guy, right? He's obsessing about how we solve the world's big problems.
Well, and I loved him immediately when I saw the bag of books the man carries around. And I assume you got to talk about that at some point, but he's always reading.
Yeah. And, I don't agree with him on everything, but I do agree with him on a lot of things. And, he's obviously smarter than I am. So if we're not agreeing, I'm probably wrong, but I still reserve the right to disagree. But I think that, I think the reason that people hate on philanthropists like Bill Gates is nuanced. And there are elements of validity to this, right? It was, in the United States, virtually impossible to accumulate the kind of wealth that Bill Gates has, and Elon Musk and others, in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. The tax code made it impossible. Right? Because at the highest income level, income was taxed at 70, 80, 90% for a while, 90%. So if you were making millions of dollars a year, the vast majority of that top income was going back to the federal government, supporting the country and helping us do and run programs often that served low-income people. Now, that also has a benefit to society that the work that the Gates Foundation doesn't have. And that is that the people get to decide what to work on.
Yeah.
Bill Gates may be doing it better than the populace would do, but he is nonetheless using his wealth the way he wants to use it to solve the problems he wants to solve. I think he's choosing well. His heart is in the right place. But I think sometimes he is the person that people attack, because if he is attackable, then all of the billionaires are attackable. There are no exceptions.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he sometimes comes under particular scrutiny, because he is such a good guy. But if we could demonstrate, as some people would put it, that billionaires should not exist, then we could perhaps justify returning to a tax code that eliminated them. And it's scary to talk about confiscatory tax rates, right? That doesn't make people comfortable.
And nor should it, by the way.
When is that fair? But the reality is, it's hard to argue that billionaires weren't helped by the public in creating that incredible wealth. And so does the public have some right to participate in that? Yeah, I think we would all agree, yes. Then the only question is how much, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why we probably don't want to spend too much time on that, but it's an interesting, I think there are reasons, and again, reasonable people can differ about all these topics, but yeah, I see why in the weeds, in the nuances, there are reasons to argue about Bill Gates. In fact, there was one episode I saw, an interview that Bill Gates had produced, where he had this very conversation with Bernie Sanders, right?
Really?
About whether or not billionaires should exist, and they sort of left it. If we'll have to agree to disagree on some of these nuances, but on many things, I think he agrees with Bernie Sanders, including that billionaires should be taxed more. But there's still a question of, how much, right? Bernie would take more than Bill wants to give. I was very pleased to see that, Bill Gates has repeatedly said that he intends to give away substantially all of his wealth before his death. And he's laid out a timeline for that over the next 20 years now. And it's impressive that he intends to leave his heirs, on the order of $1 billion or $2 billion. The rest of the wealth will go, and it's, I think his peak wealth was well over $100 billion will go into the foundation. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Well, and I love that him and Warren Buffett, I would never have imagined those two. They're both people I admire. And to know that they're friends and that they both focus on philanthropy has been a huge insight for me. Now, let's pivot away from the billionaires, because I don't want people hating on billionaires and coming after us. But the reality is, we can agree that billionaires add value. We can agree that maybe they could pay taxes. We'll leave it at that. But it just fascinates me when I bring up Bill Gates. People literally spit on the ground, and it's like, what did he do to you?
Yeah.
So for the record, I think he's a nice guy, and I'm going to assume that he's as nice as he comes across. So
my interactions with him confirm that.
I love it. I mean, you don't go to Africa and buy water treatment machines just because you want a photo op. And for the record, a lot of what he does is outside of the public eye. So
absolutely.
Now let's talk about Devin, because you are fascinating and you're in front of me. So you threw out a couple of things, and I want to talk about crowdfunding and impact funding, because I know it's been around, you said 20, 25 years. However, I still feel like it's in witness protection, because everybody wants to talk about Wall Street and greed, and yet I think there's this quiet little movement that's just busy doing good in the world, and nobody's noticing it because it's not exploitive enough to make the news. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, there are no simple answers, right? And impact investing means different things to different people. Part of the reason that it is poorly understood is that for most of its life, impact investing has been something only the wealthy can do. And some of the people who would say they are not wealthy who are doing it are only not wealthy in their own eyes, right?
Yeah.
If you're a doctor with a $400,000 income and a $3 million net worth, you may reasonably say, I'm not wealthy because many of your doctor friends are richer, and Bill Gates is a lot richer.
Yeah.
But most of us, the 99% of us who have less income and fewer assets than that doctor, we would say he's wealthy, right?
Yep.
So the impact investing world has been a playground. Playground's a tough word. It's been an arena for the wealthy. And an echo of our just finished conversation, is in part, it's a way for wealthy folks who may have exploited other people to assuage the guilt of their wealth accumulation.
Yeah.
So there are a variety of reasons. Now, my passion is all around this crowdfunding niche that allows ordinary folks to invest. Sometimes literally, I saw one deal where you could invest as little as $1. And there are a couple of places where you can go every day of the week and invest 10 bucks. And so if you can start building an investment portfolio, paying no fees, and start with $10, holy crap, this is genuinely for everyone. If you have a minimum wage job and you want to save for retirement, you're going to scrimp and save and want to do good in the world, you can participate in this marketplace, right?
Wow.
And that is, to me, exciting. And so if you do $10 a month for the rest of your life, you will have in retirement thousands of dollars. If you keep reinvesting the money you get back. So it is a place for everyone to participate. And, ordinary folks that are making $75,000 a year, $100,000 a year in their household, they can afford to do $100 a month or $200 a month, and really over time accumulate meaningful portfolios of impact that are generating real returns. And it's exciting. And I need to emphasize, this is a regulated marketplace, just like the stock market, only it doesn't feel quite so rigged. In the stock market, in the stock market, when you and I buy stocks, and we probably do, I do, we're doing that in the absence of the kind of information that the hedge funds and even mutual fund managers have. And you say, well, you could invest through the mutual fund. That yes, you can, and you'll pay a fee for the privilege.
For that privilege, yeah.
So it's tough to get stock market returns in the stock market because you're either fending for yourself, using your own good judgment. I have a portfolio that's been kind of hammered by this new administration. Even though stocks have recovered largely, my portfolio hasn't, because I have kind of a democratic portfolio, lots of clean tech stocks and things like that have been kind of punished because there's worry about the tax credits and those kinds of things going away. So my portfolio is really shellacked. So it's just but in my crowdfunding portfolio, I'm still getting my loan payments every month. I'm still hearing success stories from some of the equity investments I've made. We're taking a long-term view, and no one's worried about, the tax credit on this or that deal. People are just out there busy, entrepreneurs, changing the world, doing good. And I get to back them and participate in the upside. And some of them are going to go out of business. Some of them already have. I probably made 70, 75 investments. And I probably had 5 of them already tank. But I've had a similar number already pay off 100%. So it's great. I love it.
Well, and what I'm hearing in all of that, Devin, and I think it's fascinating because the regular stock market, you and we're coming at the bottom of the picnic. We're getting the scraps. We're lucky if we don't get stepped on by the big players. Whereas what I'm hearing here is you're not just participating in investing, you're also participating in, literally you're buying the American dream and supporting, I can't imagine the impact. There's the impact of the investment, but then the impact of the companies, the impact on the founder, their family, their community. I like the idea that you're betting on your neighbor, not, some big company that may or may not be strip mining in the Amazon.
And it's so hard to figure out, right? Who's good. And one of the things I love to point out when we're talking about trying to have impact and make a difference with your money, if you try to build a portfolio in the stock market that is aligned with your values, got to remember one of the things that happens. The reality is when you buy a stock, you are not giving the money to the company you want to support. You're giving the money to probably BlackRock or Fidelity, a fund manager, right? That's who's getting the money. You just bought the stock from someone else, unless you're talking about an IPO share. And even then, some of the shares in an IPO are going to the funds go to the venture capitalist who backed the company, or maybe the founder, not the company, even then. So it's, but when you are investing via crowdfunding, you're giving the money to the company so they can use it to accomplish their objective. And if their objective is one you support, shazam, you are having impact, making a difference. And I'm proud to have been able to do that.
Well, and Jay, who connected us, when we talk about Burble, I'm going from memory, it's been a while, but I believe as an investor, you can put in money, and as a customer, you can pay, I think it's $500, you get access to their early model. And then when their next model comes out, you can take your current one, donate it to a nonprofit that helps kids with autism, and you get a brand new one. And it's like, I love the business model. And, I don't want to call it just a business model, but, that's what Jay brought to the table.
Yeah.
Is we can do good by doing good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is so exciting to see the potential. You look at the opportunity to invest in a business like that and you say, wow, I want this thing to exist in the world, and I can make a genuine difference.
Yeah.
With $100 or $200, and you go, wow, that matters. That's exciting. And at the same time, then you can give the opportunity to an entrepreneur to change. I mean, it's wonderful. And like I say, if you are approaching this with the scrutiny of an investor, then I think you can have more impact and make money. And let me be clear. It sounds cynical as we're sitting here talking about having impact, right? You say, well, why do you care about money? And there are three reasons, and they all relate to having more impact. The first reason, if you don't scrutinize a business for its ability to become profitable, then you are risking the possibility that you are giving money to someone who will fail. Now, that might make you feel good, but it doesn't accomplish much.
Yeah.
Second reason,
falls off pretty quick.
Yeah. Second reason, if you are investing and you invest in deals that are successful and they pay you back with interest or with appreciation, you can reinvest now more money for impact. So your impact is increasing.
Yeah.
Third reason, and it again, focusing on the impact. If you begin to see, wait a minute, my impact investments via crowdfunding are earning more money than my stock market portfolio, I should move the money, at least some of it, out of the stock market and into this. Now, holy cow, it's a third layer, right? Because now we're not just talking about scraping together $10. We're saying, okay, I got this retirement account that has some money in it.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of dollars. I can start moving some of that into impact, and wow, I can make a meaningful difference or more meaningful difference in the world. So yeah, there are these three they're somewhat related, but there are three distinct reasons why making money is important. And when you begin to really make money doing good, you go, holy cow, it's almost like magic.
Yeah, it becomes, I call it a virtuous cycle. And for what it's worth, I've talked to a couple of wealthy people that say, you know what, my philanthropy is more fun than most people's because I'm impacting, Arthur Blank is notorious. He built the Home Depot empire, and he's got an entire foundation. He has a lot more impact on the world than, you or I, if we donate to the Girl Guides. They come to our door and we buy cookies. Yes, we help the Girl Guides today, but when you look at the Arthur Blank Foundation, probably Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the impact is generational at times.
Yeah, yeah. But we can have that same kind of impact with our investments this way, because they grow, and they can continue perpetually, right? If any of our money outlives us, that money can continue to do good perpetually. So it's exciting.
That is really cool. Now, is this something you've created, or did you just find a market space and say, and again, for the record, our people watching, they care about impact first and money. So we won't offend anyone if we talk about money, because the reality is the more money I earn, the more impact I have. How did you get started in this fascinating space, Devin?
Well, when I was 11 years old, my dad invited me to go with him up to Rexburg, Idaho, after the Teton Dam failed. And the Teton Dam really nearly destroyed the town of Rexburg, Idaho, and left about 80% of the structures damaged or destroyed. And we went up and we worked on one house, my dad and I, with a church group. But there were thousands of people that showed up that day. We were assigned to this one particular house, and the reality is I was 11 years old. I did not make a difference. I didn't know it at the time. I thought I'd really changed the world, and I felt so good that I wanted to do that again. And I vowed that I would never miss an opportunity to do that. Now, I have missed opportunities. I won't claim otherwise. But what I began to do is, by the time I started my career, I decided that I would devote the second half of my career to social impact. And so the first half of my career was in corporate finance. Second half of my career, what I keep coming back to is, how do I use money for good, right? One way or another, I've got to focus on that, because my skills are all around money.
Yep.
And so if I'm not in that money game, I'm really out of my depth. Now, my only contribution is what I can do with my back, and what I can do with my back is declining rapidly. So I have to have any real impact, I've got to be talking about, thinking about, writing about money and how we use it for good.
Well, and I love that, it's literally leveraged impact, because again, to the people, if you help them build a house, I'm sure it had a big impact on their family, but it doesn't help the neighbor next door. And I think that's a lot of people mistake philanthropy for, we're all broke, and I'm going to be less broke because somebody helped me. Whereas I'm a big fan of the hand up, not a hand out. And I think leveraging your superpowers becomes huge. Now, I don't want people to think this is all about money and investing, because it's clearly not. And I love your spirit and what you're doing. Let's talk about from two perspectives. Number one, from the investor, the public side of things, and then number two, from the entrepreneur side of things. How does working with you add to their impact, and how do they work with you?
I do almost no consulting anymore. I have an on-demand coaching program. People can reach out and spend 30 minutes with me for $99. I try to make that affordable so that people can pick my brain a little bit without going broke. But the reality is, I'm sharing treasure troves, vast amounts, for free. So, for instance, my latest book is this book, Crowdfunding Made Simple. What do we call it? It's a step-by-step guide to raising capital using AI tools. And that book, if you want to download it for free, you can. It's at here. I'll put a link in the chat, and maybe you can put in the show notes. But
absolutely.
Let's see. Where's the chat? Anyway, I'll do it before we wrap up. But I make that available for free. My newsletter, we post, now we're posting about 10 times a week. Only one of those posts requires a payment, right? If you want to get my due diligence report on Devin's pick of the week, you got to pay a whopping $5.95 a month to be a subscriber. Otherwise, all the rest of the content is free. And so we're profiling entrepreneurs. We're listing the new offerings. We're celebrating the offerings that have closed for the week, focusing on impact all the time. So we're just, and then we've got a new program we just started that's going super well. We've invited people in the community to share their voice and share articles and thoughts with us. And people are loving these new voices that are coming from our crowd, the super crowd. And so, we're just having a ball building this community, sharing insights for free. We recently had Super Crowd LA, and it was an in-person hybrid conference. Yeah, we charged $400 to be in the room, but we streamed the whole event live to television, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, so people could watch every minute for free. So we are doing everything we can to make content that's informative, helpful, guides people, is actionable, trying to do that every way we can for free. And so we've been pretty successful at producing a lot of content, helping a lot of people do a lot of things. So part of the way we make money is to get people to sponsor our work, because we have a growing audience. It makes sense for them to chip in to support our work, to be kind of profiled in that context. So that's how it works.
I love it. And I will point out, if you go to Amazon, and I'll have a link in the show notes, I think 9 of your books show up on mine. So I think you said there was 10. So I'm curious.
I don't know. Yeah.
And by the way, I love the fact that you're like 9 or 10. I don't know. That's
part of it is what counts. I've contributed to a couple of anthologies. So anyway.
But for the record, I do see the crowdfunding made simple popping up. So at least we know that one's there for sure. So I joke, I have a bunch of book babies that I've forgotten about, and I'm a terrible book daddy because it's like, oh, I should give that one a little love. But I wrote it for a purpose, and it served its purpose, and now I'm moving on. So now I love you talk about community. So let's talk about your podcast and your TV background, because I think, again, I want to stress that there are great resources out there. I read a disturbing article yesterday. Somebody said that when Harvard and Yale and all these, they put all their courses online, and everybody was like, oh, nobody's going to go to the schools. They're going to take all this free knowledge. And sadly, it didn't change much, because it wasn't access that mattered. It was the action that people would take based on the access. So let's talk about working with you on the founder side, because I think, how does a founder, and this is probably a bigger question that may need more time, but how does a founder get into the world of crowdfunding? Because honestly, I'm going to be honest, I see a lot of founders who are doing that traditional, let's call it venture capital hustle, and you take your soul and you sell it to the highest bidder. I love what you're doing, because I feel like having investors who are aligned rather than a big giant, hedge fund that's going to gobble you up. How does a founder get into the impact crowdfunding world?
Yeah, it's, the great thing is there are no secret handshakes, there are no secret codes, and really there are very few fees, relatively speaking. When if you're talking about raising $5 million, you're going to have to spend some money, but realistically, this is a great marketplace. Let me give you a clear message. There are 2 groups of people that I worry about. in crowdfunding among the founders. There are those who think crowdfunding is easy, and some of the portals, all the portals exaggerate how easy it is to get you to do an offering.
Yeah.
They all do. I love these people. They're great people. And they'll all say, oh, but we warn them, and then we tell them, well, yes, but then you also reassure them that you'll help them. And that's what they hear, right? They hear the part about the help, not.
Yeah, they don't hear about the mountain you got to climb. They hear about the photo up at the top, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So a lot of them, so we do see still way too many founders putting an offering online and waiting for the money to show up. And it doesn't happen, right? So that still happens. Blows me away that in 2025, after all the years of Kickstarter and people failing on Kickstarter and failing on WeFunder, I mean, how do they not figure this out? Anyway, still happens. The other group is a group that's a little more sophisticated, and they look at all that's required for crowdfunding. They say, oh, that is too hard. I can't do that. And they don't try. Right. And then they end up going down more traditional paths. And a lot of those paths are just not open to them. If your business doesn't have a legitimate opportunity to be a $1 billion valuation business, you are not getting venture capital ever. That is just not happening. Yeah. And most angel investors are only interested in backing the same kind of businesses. So you can talk to people until you are blue in the face and you're not going to get money. And banks, if you don't have assets and income and revenue, you're not borrowing money from a bank. So now tell me, what option is open to you?
Yeah.
And so what I don't understand is some of the people that reject crowdfunding because it's too hard when their only option is crowdfunding. It is literally the only way they can do this. So it's frustrating for me, and I'm trying to help everyone see, those who think it's you just put it up and wait for the money to roll in. We've got to help them see there are steps required, step by step. You got to do the work, or you're not going to get money. On the other hand, if you're afraid of the work, let's be clear. In 2025, ChatGPT can help you do a lot of the work. It isn't the same backbreaking lift it was a decade ago when we started crowdfunding. Yeah. There are tools, there are experts, there are people around, there's a whole community. It is not all on you. So you can do the work successfully to raise money from the crowd. And there are some clear formulas now that we begin to see, so that if you have a good idea, you can raise $5 million from the crowd. There's a formula. You follow the formula and you can raise money. But is it hard work? Yes. But for a lot of people, it's the only path.
I love that. And I think it saddens me that people will close off a path because, it's too hard. Well, if it's your only path, guess what? You're going to have to learn to climb up the side of the mountain. Yeah. Whereas I can imagine a lot of people, they're looking in their mailbox every day going, where's my big bag of cash? And, if it was that easy, we'd all do it and then it wouldn't work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And part of my crusade is to help entrepreneurs by convincing more of my friends to become investors. Yeah. And because the more of us that are investing, I make money doing this. I don't know why more people aren't doing it with me. But the more of us who are investing, the easier it will be for entrepreneurs to raise capital and do good in the world. It's win-win. If ever there was win-win, this is it. And we talk a lot about the equity side of things. I really want to just point out one important nuance, and that is that a lot of the people who are raising capital from the crowd use debt models. Yeah. And the debt models are so much simpler to understand, and they take a lot of the risk out. You say, well, what if they go out of business? Yeah, they may go out of business. But let's be real, very, very few are going to go out of business before they make a payment. Mm-hmm. And so if you lend someone money at 12% over 3 years, and they make money, if they make payments for 18 months or 24 months and then stop, you got most of your money back.
Yeah.
Right. And what really happens is when businesses get in trouble, usually they talk to the portal, and the portal begins to work with them. Right. Then the portal and the investors together vote on, what's a plan that will help you get the breath you need to figure out how you can. So if you're doing these debt deals, you can get higher returns than the stock market is delivering. Build a portfolio, because some of these, you can make some of these investments for $10, $100. You don't need to be rich. So you can build a very diverse portfolio that's yielding higher than stock market returns. And then you can afford to have one or two of these loans go bad, even right out of the chute. And it's not going to kill your portfolio. Your portfolio will survive in the same way your stock market portfolio survives in a bear market.
Well, and Devin, I'll point out that when people are investing this, you need to look at the founder's side. His entire life, or hers, is at risk. They're risking their house, they're risking their assets. They're not going to fail because it was Tuesday, I needed a break.
That's right.
They're gonna hustle, right? And they're also generally very hardworking, very ambitious, very creative. You're literally investing in your neighbor, and I love that.
Yeah. And so we're seeing it working all the time in all kinds of ways. And whatever floats your boat, you can back. So I love to support women founders, because women founders do struggle to raise capital. That there's so much evidence that the market continues to be skewed away from women. I like to try to fill the gap, even with $100 at a time. I like to support other diverse founders, and so we see members of the LGBTQ community struggling to raise capital. We see people that are in the African American community, especially, but all minorities are more prime. So I like to look at that. I like to look at social impact. So I'm looking at like healthcare deals. I just invested in several healthcare deals, breast cancer treatments and all kinds of cool stuff. I've invested all kinds of money in climate solutions, EV chargers, new tech, all kinds of stuff. I mean, just one thing after the big impact. And the portfolio just grows and grows. So
I love the impact and the portfolio growing. Jay is great. So we want to say hi to Jay one more time. But Devin, thank you for hanging out with me. And Jay, thank you for connecting me with Devin. He is an amazing human. Devin, where can people go to learn more about you or connect with you, just to follow what you're doing?
Yeah, probably the easiest place to start is Superpowers for Good. Superpowers for Good. We write the 4 with a number 4. Superpowers4good.com. Superpowersforgood.com. Or just do a Google search, Superpowers for Good, Devin Thorpe. You'll find me. It's not. I'm not a secret. Not hard to find me. So we'd love to see you there.
Love it. And there's also links from your LinkedIn profile. So Devin, is there any advice you would give a young founder, a young visionary who's starting out, something you wish you knew, when you were starting out? And maybe let's go back and talk to your 11-year-old self.
Yeah. The key thing, I think, is for young entrepreneurs to believe in yourself and believe in your vision and commit to it. Like Jeff was saying, founders that are successful are those that when they see a wall, they see a problem that can be solved. Right there is a way to go through it, under it, over it, or around it. Let's figure it out. That wall is not impenetrable, and so believe in yourself and the work that you're doing, and don't give up. That's the secret to success, I'm convinced.
I love it. And I'm laughing because I use almost the exact words when I talk about a wall. It's like, entrepreneurs, we don't understand barricade. We're like, no, that's a challenge. So Devin, thank you for being on the show. I had a great time and I learned a lot. So thank you for enlightening us.
Thank you.